Hey YouTube, welcome to another awesome episode of Comics and Stuff. My name is Devin and I'm your host as always, and today I'm going to be talking about how to sell comic books. Now, disclaimer, I'm not an expert. I don't own like a comic book store or anything like that. I just sell comic books to friends and people who, like on eBay and, Comic Connect and Comic Link and all that sort of stuff. But I don't profess to be any sort of industry professional. But if you're just looking to do some small time, trading or dealing and things like that, I can help you with that, and that's what I'm going to do. This episode is kind of like a follow-up from last week's How to Collect Comic Books video. A lot of people really liked that, and a few people just, messaged me on Facebook and were like, hey, you should do one about how to sell comic books. So I'm going to do my best to explain to you how I started and kind of help you guys kind of like apply that to yourselves in the best way I can possibly do. I have a 10-point easy to understand list. I might go off on a few tangents just because there's a lot of information, but I'm going to try to make this as understandable and short as possible. This might run you about 20 minutes, so if you don't have time, I'd say catch it on like another day when you do, because it's a lot of stuff. But yeah, that's really it. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and let's start with step number one. I have my list right here, and step number one is figure out what you're an expert in. Sorry for stuttering. Figure out what you're an expert in. So figure out what you're an expert in. That's a really easy concept. Figure out what you're smart with. Look at your own collection. What do you collect? That's probably the stuff you know best. That's probably where you'll have the most knowledge, I guess, as far as first appearances or key issues or rare things go. I started off with a lot of sci-fi. So Adam Strange and Star Wars and Green Lantern. So when I started selling comic books on my eBay store, which is Nerd Shop, I'll put a link to that in the description below. I started with old Green Lantern comics from the 60s. So Hal Jordan, not Alan Scott, not Golden Age. That's too expensive for me. And we'll get to pricing and, like budgeting later. But find out what you know. See if there's things that are relevant to current pop culture, or perhaps find what you know in your collection is worth a lot, and unfortunately you might have to sell some of your stuff, but that we'll get to that later. But yeah, that's step number one. Find what you're good at. So let's move to step two, which is how to research what is selling. Let's talk about that. So step two is pretty easy as well. Research. How do you find out what comic books are hot? Which books are trending? Which books are selling? There's a ton of places that you can do this at. One, go to your local comic book convention. Look at what books are selling at top price. Those are generally either A, the extremely rare books that will always be worth money, or B, the hot books that are trending right now. How do you find what books are trending besides Comic-Cons? Comic book movies. Look at what's coming out. You got Doctor Strange coming out. We just had Captain America, Civil War come out. Batman vs. Superman just came out, and all those, the whole Justice League made their little cameos. We're getting a Suicide Squad movie. There's so many movies coming out. And for the general public, everybody wants the first appearance of Iron Man now. Obviously it's always been desirable, but ever since Iron Man became a hit movie, franchise, the first appearance of Iron Man has exploded in price and demand. And since there's such a finite amount, things like that you really have to kind of look out for. There's also other websites such as diamondcomics.com for Diamond distributors. If you don't know who that is, Diamond Distribution is the largest comic book distributor in the world. So they have an industry statistics report on their page. You can look at that and see what the top selling comic books each month are. Same with ICV2. And if you didn't catch that, it's in the description below. There's Comic-Con. So ICV2 and Comic-Con, those are both industry trender. They keep charts and data about which comic books and which trade paperbacks are selling the most out of every single month. And then you can also go to sellmycomicbooks.com and investcomics.com, or Total Comic Mayhem, which is one of my favorite websites of all time. Total Comic Mayhem is great. But anyways, you can see what they have, their own investment lists. They have what's hot. They have what's selling, XYZ. All of that you can find, just on these websites, and I use a lot of those just when I'm, running low on eBay stock and I just need something to kind of keep things going. So that's how you research what's hot. Yeah, you really got to pay attention. I would also suggest subscribe to things like Comic Book Resources or comicbook.com. Those are always really helpful. Now let's talk a little bit about working capital and budgeting because those are scary. Let's move on to step 3. So step 3, sorry, just got a haircut. Step 3, working capital. That is difficult if you're not a rich person, and I'm not a rich person. My YouTube set and my bedroom are one and the same. So, uh, I'm not a rich guy. And when you're not rich, you're gonna have to make some sacrifices. If you are rich, man, just start pouring money into it. You'll be fine. But when I first started selling comic books, I sold off a crap ton of my own personal collection, with the thought in mind that someday I will be able to buy it back because they're out there. They're just, it'll take time. So I sold off a lot of my Green Lantern collection. I sold off my first Sinestro and first Star Sapphire and things like that. They were in immaculate condition, but I got a really good startup. And then I put about $900 on a credit card. Don't follow that example, but that's what I did. And I mean, obviously, I paid it off eventually. But you're gonna have to make a couple sacrifices. And you're gonna have to do a lot of saving because to really start up a successful, small time comic book trading thing, if you want to do it on eBay or something, you're gonna have to have significant stock. There's a lot of different comic books in demand, so make sure that you have a good budget. Now, that's not to say go over the top and spend as much money as possible. Find an amount that you're comfortable with, that you can buy the right books with that will sell. But you also have to be smart with your investments, which is part of step 4, how to buy your comics. And we're going to move on to that now. How to buy comics. That is a great question. There's a lot of different ways to do it. Now, one thing I will tell you to avoid is don't buy your rare comics to sell at a Comic Con. Everybody always says, "Oh, I'm going to go get my rare books at a Comic Con." Don't do that. Why? Unless you're really good friends with a comic book dealer, chances are everything is overpriced and nobody's going to haggle with you too much. Everybody's there to make a profit, so don't buy your rare comics at a Comic Con if you're planning on selling them. Now, if you're at a Comic Con and you really want this book that's really rare and you can't find it on eBay and this guy just happens to have one for a decent price, buy it. But don't plan on selling it because you probably bought it for what you would get out of it selling it. Go to your local comic book shop. They're generally a little nicer. Most of them have decent backstock issues. I'm in Seattle, and there's maybe 4 in my area that I could go to and find a few hundred just back issues. You can also talk to your friends if you have friends that are comic book geeks. I have a ton, so I'm always grateful for that. And another thing, and this might sound kind of stupid, but you get lucky on eBay a lot. A lot. Eventually, every now and then you will find somebody who doesn't know what they have, doesn't know what they're selling, and, just take it. Take advantage of that if you find a good deal. Don't feel bad for the other guy. And I know that's harsh, but you're trying to make money for yourself and you're trying to get the best collectibles in comics. If you find, like a Hulk 181, which goes for $600 to $800, and you see it in really nice condition selling for $250, buy it. But also make sure that you take the time to inspect the book and make sure that it's not selling for such a low price because of such a crazy defect or some sort like that. You can also look on Craigslist. There are people who are selling comics. Generally, these are not great collections. These are more so these are the comics I don't want to read anymore because they are from companies that don't exist anymore that failed, and no comics are rare, and or 90s books that isn't Harley Quinn or Deadpool related. Craigslist is a little more difficult than eBay. You can also look at places like Comic Link, Comic Connect, which I talked about in my previous video. So that's how to buy comics. Just look for the lowest price, look for a good deal, look for somebody who's looking for a best offer them, message them, say, "Hey man, look, I'm looking to get this book for this much, what's the best you can do on it?" Find a middle ground. Really, that's it. And sorry, this is me ranting again. That's what I told you, I might rant. So it's a little difficult to buy your comics, but once you get a hold of them for a good price, I mean, you're in the gold. So we'll talk about how to price your stuff later. But let's move on to where you can sell your comics. Where to sell your comics? Gosh, you could sell them on Craigslist, but I choose not to because I think it's shady. Um, I run an eBay store. It's called Nerd Shop. I've mentioned that 3 times now. Sorry. And it's probably the best outlet for me, at least. eBay fees aren't so high. Um, Communication is really easy. Everything's done through PayPal. I really like it. Now you can also auction your comic books, or you can sell your comic books to places such as My Comic Book Shop or mycomicshop.com. You can sell your comics on Comic Link or Comic Connect. But there are places that I feel that you shouldn't sell. This is kind of step 6. I'm going to kind of combine them. I'm sorry, I'm totally winging it. Step 5, step 6 is where to sell them and where not to sell them, really. So step 6 is don't sell them to dealers. Don't sell them to rare comic book dealers because they're always looking to make a profit. So, funny story, I had a couple books that were worth, few $1,000s, and this is way back in the day when I first started, like 2 or 3 years ago. I guess that's not way back in the day. That's like when I was 19 or something. How old am I? I'm 23. Anyways, and I had books that were worth a few $1,000s, and I went over to one of my local comic book dealer guys that I know, and I was like, look, I'm looking for about $2,500 because that's what the book was worth, and I quickly realized that the guy was not going to give me anywhere. He offered me closer to like $900, and he would not budge. And this is something that you'll find all over with other comic book dealers because they're in it to make money as well. It's a business. They have to, business is business. Plain and simple. So that was step 5 and step 6. Sell your stuff on eBay. Look at Comic Link. Look at Comic Connect. Maybe look at My Comic Shop. Don't sell to dealers. And Comic Con's kind of hit and miss. Sell to your friends. Be the guy that hooks them up. Voila. But yeah, okay. Step 7. What you should do with your books. Step 8. How to price your books. My rule of thumb is I always, whenever I get a book, it depends on how much I pay for it. Now, if I can't make at least 25% profit on my book, so that's what I paid for my book plus 25% more than what I paid. If I can't make at least 25% more, I will not buy the book. That is my rule of thumb, and that is all I really have to say for step 8. Don't buy a book unless you know you can make at least 25% profit on that investment. Because if you can't, it's not worth it, and it will just be kind of a waste of time. Yeah, step 8, man. 25% or more. Nothing less. Let's move on to step 9. Step 9 is what's next. Let me tell you, you always have to, when it comes to comic books, and this really can be applied for any business, stay on the ball. You have to be checking your eBay and your Comic Link and your Comic Connect and your Comic Shop every day. You have to be looking out for the best deals every day. I check mine when I wake up. I check mine at lunch. I check mine before lunch, after lunch, when I get home, before I get to the gym. Just after the gym, I have reminders set for all of my bids and auctions. This is something you really got to stay on top of it because you never know who's going to be announced for a movie in a year from now, and then that comic book is going to jump up like crazy. So always make sure you're clocked into all the comic book dealing outlets and news outlets. I mean, you really have to be on the ball with that. I guess that would be step 9. Yeah, be on the ball, restock your books. Always pay attention. That is the most important thing that I can stress is always pay attention to the market. Keep on it. Now, step 10, the final step is how to mix your comics and your collectibles. So books and action figures. Let's talk about that. All right, you made it to the end of the video. Awesome. Thank you. I feel like I've been ranting a lot more so than the other one that I made, but I hope you guys have enjoyed this. So step 10 is how to mix your collectibles, your action figures, your comic books. It's not something I do a whole lot, but they kind of go hand in hand, action figures and comic books. If you want to sell an Aquaman #1 and you want to make a little extra money, find a nice Aquaman statue. Do a collection, do a set. You can even do this with just comic books. I've been working on a Batman villains collection. Actually, I can probably show it to you. Okay. Let's see if I can pull this bad boy out. So check this out, guys. I'm trying to do a full run of Silver Age Batman villain first appearances. So, I got my first Silver Age Scarecrow, first Silver Age Catwoman, first Silver Age Two-Face, first Silver Age Penguin, first Bronze Age new costume Deadshot, first Joker single story, first Bane. I mean, this goes on and on and on. And then, first Killer Croc. And then earlier today, I purchased, sorry, these are other books, but earlier today, I purchased first Silver Age Riddler and Poison Ivy. So that's a whole set. I'm going to send these all off to get graded so they can, and I'm going to send them all off to PGX just because these are all lower grade and that I like PGX's kind of like budgety feel. People like that. I think it's really cool. Hence why I've said I've started to like PGX a lot more than I have before. But yeah, so I'm gonna send these all off to PGX to get graded, and sell them off as a set. And people really like that because if somebody's really into Batman and looking for a good deal on their Batman villains, I mean, boom, you have almost all of them. The only thing I'm missing is like Ra's al Ghul and Hugo Strange and Talia, I guess. Long story short, people love sets. People love collections. Sell an Aquaman #1 with an Aquaman statue. Sell a full run of, that's another thing. I had full runs of, Green Lantern New Guardians and Green Lantern Corps and, just regular title Green Lantern. And I sold them all as a set. And, you sell them at, this is from the New 52, so I sold them at like 75 cents a piece. But I made a decent amount of money. That was, 52 comics or whatever. So that's that. Sorry. Sets. It's important. People love that stuff. They eat it up. That's it for this video. If you guys enjoyed this or if you have any other videos you want me to make, please let me know in the comments below. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button. That's also going to be kind of like right here. And if you want to check out my website where I do a weekly blog, it's every Thursday now. That's going to be above my head. But that's it for this episode of Comic Books and Stuff, guys. Comic Books and Stuff. I'm sorry. I've had a long day. But that's it for Comics and Stuff. We will see you guys, I guess, on Friday. Take care.